Hi, this is Colonel D of Colonel D Gourmet Herbs and Spices, and this is an exciting time for us. This is our first podcast, so we're all a little nervous, and hopefully we'll make it through this thing. Today we're going to talk about baking and prepping fish. I'm on a personal campaign because I think people tend to overcook fish. I think we're afraid of it just a little bit. And so what we're going to try to do today is to show you some ways that you can make sure that it's done, and this is my patented, if you will, approach to doing fish. I always like to start on top of the stove. Let's make believe that this is a stove. And then I like to finish off the fish in the oven, which gives me more control over not overcooking the fish. And so the toaster oven today is going to be our oven. One of the first things I like to do with any protein, whether it's fish, chicken, pork, whatever I'm eating, I always like to wash it. I don't know exactly what the fishmonger was doing prior to selling me the fish, so I want to make sure that it's clean and ready for me to start working on it. So I'm going to go over to the sink and wash the fish, and then I'm going to paper towel dry it, and that's going to give me enough tactility that it will hold all of the seasonings that I'm going to put on the fish. But we want to make sure that we get it as dry as possible with a paper towel. No matter how much you try to dry it, it's always going to maintain some moisture, and that's the good part. That's what we want it to do, because we want it to be able to take the spice blends that we're going to give it and hold it to the skin. People often ask me, do you do both sides? Well, you do unless the fish still has the skin on it, and there's no reason to season the skin unless you're trying to do something special and something fancy. So on a tilapia, this is the inside of the fillet. This is where the skin would have been, and so this is the side that is going to be down for this. I do not, as a rule, flip fish. It is so light and so tender that there's really not a reason to turn the fish. Some folks like to do it on a grill. This is the only protein that I routinely will not cook on a grill. I much prefer top of the stove and the oven, because it can get away from you so quickly that it's very hard to not overcook it on a grill. So I now have my fish ready to be addressed with my seasonings. Today we're going to use 4. We're going to use the Chef's Seasoning Citrus. We're going to use Bada Bing, which is going to give us an Italian flavor. If I'm doing maybe pasta, or I'm going to have a side of lasagna, and I want my fish to have the flavor that would complement that, then I'd want to use the Bada Bing. Then we'll use Holy Smoke, and finally we'll use Debbie's Southwest. This will be for those people who are a bit adventurous and like to have a little spiciness. That is what we're going to put on there. The big question that we get here at the store all the time is, do you really rub a rub? So I'm going to show you what you do with a rub. All 4 of these could be considered spice blends or rubs, whatever you choose to call them. I'm a pincher, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to pinch some of the Chef's Seasoning Citrus, and I'm sprinkling it, rather lightly. I don't want to overdo the fish. I just want it to have some of the nice flavors. I want to make sure that I get some of the lemon verbena, that I get some of the lemon zest, and just basically put it on there. Now, here's the part where I guess you would call it rub. You take your hand pat it into the protein. That's as close as you come, especially with a fish, to rubbing. All right? You can get a little more aggressive with some of the more dense meats like chicken, pork, and steak. That also brings me to a point. I'm not going to let this rest very long before I cook it. Each protein has its own length of time that it likes to sit and rest with the spice mixture on it. Fish is the most delicate, so it requires the least amount of time. Chicken is next, followed by pork, followed by steak. I have been known to put seasonings on a piece of steak and let it sit overnight. There's nothing wrong with that. But with a piece of fish, that's way too long because the fish is far too tender and it's going to just kind of get mushy after a while. On a later podcast, we'll talk about the science of what is actually going on, the reason we let them rest, and what our spice mixture is actually doing there. Now, while that's sitting and resting, we're going to prepare our, imagine this as a skillet, and it's I think a little Pampered Chef thing. I'm going to use two items. I'm going to use olive oil, and this happens to be one we carry, duh. This is Munoz. It's a very nice Spanish olive oil. And so I'm going to put some of that on there. I'm not going to put it on in a quantity as if I were going to fry the fish, because I'm not frying it. I'm sauteing it. I'm going to follow that up with some of our pecan oil. Now, the pecan oil is a wonderful product in that it really doesn't have a lot of flavor. I'm still going to taste the wonderful flavor of the olive oil, but what it's going to do is it's going to jack up my smoke point. And I'm going to be a happy camper about that, because the last thing I want is a kitchen full of smoke. So I'm going to dilute the olive oil with just a little bit of pecan oil. And now that should not smoke no matter how hot I get the grease. So, or how hot I get the pan. I'm going to fire this baby up now. And we'll let that start to get hot. And while that's getting hot, I'm then going to just fan the pan around and try to get that oil evenly on the surface so that I don't have stiction. Stiction is not your friend. You do not want your food to stick. So there, I've got it nice and covered. I'll let that heat up now. And a good rule, my rule anyway, I don't know if it's good or not, when the oil is ready, is take your hand and hold it over the middle of whatever pan you've got. And if you can hold your hand there and talk into the camera, it's not hot enough. So what you want is you want to be able to put your hand in there and go, you know what, I don't think I want to leave that there very long. That says that your pan is now hot enough. Another way that you can do it is olive oil goes through 3 stages. When I first poured it in there, it did what I call puddle. So there was little puddles. Then after it starts getting hot, it pools. It starts expanding. Now, just before it smokes, it does something very unusual. It forms little waves, but you have to look at it obliquely. Get it from the side and get the light right. And I don't have the right kind of light here to really see that, so I'm having to rely on my hand method. But when you see the little waves happening, then you're ready, because the next stage after waves is smoke. So you want to make sure that you're not smoking up the house. That's not a good thing. So I am going to assume, I've never worked with this pan before, so that's exciting as well. That's getting there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the fillet in here, and I'm looking for it to get done. In other words, opaque. See how the fish looks kind of translucent here? Almost like you can see through it. I can almost see my finger through that. As it gets done, it goes translucent. Fish is a wonderful item like that in that it will show you and tell you when it's done. Salmon, for example, will change color for you, and that's when you know it's done. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on, and I want it to get done 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch up the side, and that tells me that we're ready then to put it in the oven. So what I'm doing is I'm actually setting the bottom, getting the bottom nice and crisp, so that when I eat the fish, I'm actually fooling my tongue into thinking, oh my goodness, I'm getting to eat fried fish. When really, it's baked fish. Much better for you, but you can fool your senses some of the time. Now I've got my splatter pan, top here ready, splatter screen, and you probably want to use that because most of the time the fish will still have some moisture and it will pop and splatter, so you want to kind of not have to clean up your whole kitchen every time you cook your fish. And I'm just going to wait for it to get done up the sides. I'm going to check my heat level here. That's pretty good. It's about a medium to medium high is a good level. And that will go ahead and get our fish ready to go into the oven. And through the miracle of videotaping, while it's in the oven baking, we'll probably leave you and not make you stand here and watch us watch paint dry. So that's starting to cook up real nicely. There's a little splatter I let get through. I know it's hot now. That's good. Alright, that's starting to get done and 1/8 up the side. Peggy is on the camera today, so Peggy can, no, that side's not up. It's not done. So we'll wait until that side over there starts to look like this side over here. You'll always have that. This side is flatter, so there's less fish there, and so this will get done before that does. So you want to kind of make sure that you don't pull it too early. We don't want raw fish. We're not doing sushi today. We're doing baked fish. So I think we're going to let that go though, because it's starting to get done up the side here. And we're going to put this in our, we have this oven set at 350, which is what you want your oven set at. And we're going to simply put this in the oven and let that little fish fillet bake. And we're going to set our timer. This takes a little bit longer, we've discovered, in this. Normally it would be 6 to 8 to 10 minutes. So we're going to start out here with 10, and we'll probably have to add just a little bit more to that. So we'll be right back. Well, according to the old clock, it is time, and our fish should be done, and sure enough, it looks nice and done to me. So we're going to pull it out here, set it down, close our oven door, and now we'll prepare a plate. Spatter screen out of the way. Kitchen is never big enough. Get our fish spatula under that, pull it off, and we are ready to eat. That is a nicely done piece of tilapia. You can see the seasoning on it. It's not overly done with too much seasoning. It's just right. So what we're going to do, I'm going to set this aside, and we'll sample this to all our wonderful folks who are with us today. And I have already taken the liberty while we were gone of washing and paper towel drying 3 of these fillets. So I'm going to show you what the other spices would look like. Your approach is exactly the same. This is the bada bing. This is going to give me an Italian tasting fish. It's going to be very wonderful. Just love all those Italian spices. Pat that in. Turn it over. This is the skin side. The skin has been removed, as it usually will be on tilapia.
What you're eating.
Not all your fish will actually come with the skin still on. So there is our fillet prepared and ready to be Italian. We'll cook that up in a little bit. This next one, we're going to use the holy smoke. This is very popular on steak and on chicken, but I'll tell you, there's nothing wrong with it. Put it on a piece of fish either. I do have to caution you though, if you put this on sauteed mushrooms, if you happen to be one of those people like me that eats sauteed mushrooms, you're going to put it on there, you're going to take one bite, and you're going to hear the angels. It just happens every time. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. So the holy smoke is really good on lots and lots of things. And I'm just, as you see, I'm just lightly putting this on here. It's not covering it. It's not, you know, taking it over. And that now is ready to be cooked. Find my towel. And the final fillet that we're going to do, I have him wrong side up. We're going to use Debbie's Southwest, and that is a nice spicy little mixture. Debbie happens to be Debbie Spangler, whose catering company is called Yummyissimo. Debbie's been a customer of ours, gosh, I think since we opened. She was probably one of the first customers we ever had. And she came in one day and said, "Colonel, I think I want a signature spice blend." And I thought, well, boy, that sounds like an exciting thing to do. And so we sat down, we talked about the kind of flavor profile that she wanted and what meant a lot to her and her cooking and her customers. And we came up with Debbie's Southwest, and it's been a very, very popular blend. She was kind enough and sweet enough to let us put it out for sale for our customers, and it has been a big success at all of our locations. So that's how you put the ingredients on the fish to get it ready. That's prepping it. Now there's one other thing that I want to cover, because people get kind of upset and say, "Oh, I don't like fish because it smells or tastes fishy." Well, that shouldn't get in your way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bowl, and I've got one more piece of tilapia here, and I'm going to make believe that it's been in the refrigerator just a little bit too long and it's starting to stink. So I'm going to put it in my bowl. Then I'm going to go to the refrigerator and I'm going to get my milk. What happens here is that the lactic acid in the milk interacts with the chemical that is ammoniating the fish, making it smell funny, and it's neutralizing it. So I would then take my bowl, make sure that my fish gets all good and covered. Occasionally you might want to come to the refrigerator and turn it over to make sure that that fish is getting a good milk bath. And in an hour or two, you're going to have a fish that is not going to have any smell whatsoever. So don't ever be afraid of smelly fish. That's not a problem. So I'm going to put this away. If after you've watched this podcast, if you've got questions or comments, please feel free to contact us. My email is chef@coloneld.com. Go to the website or come into the store if you're a local, and we'd love to see you, and we'll answer any and all your questions. So on behalf of Colonel D Gourmet Herbs and Spices, I want to thank you for being a part of our very first podcast, and we'll be back with more. Bye-bye.